Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Bean here, and today I'm coming at you with the next video in one of our monthly series that we do, and that is the anticipated releases. So today I'm coming at you with the anticipated releases for April 2021. All right, so there actually aren't a lot of books that I'm going to be talking about today, honestly. So I'm gonna hop right into it. The first date I'm going to talk about is April 6th, which actually is already next week. So that's kind of crazy. No, it's not next week. It's the week after. It's 2 weeks from now. So that's kind of crazy. The first book I'm going to talk about is House of Holo by Crystal Sutherland. Now, this book is one that Callie wanted to talk about, but this follows Iris Holo and her two older sisters who know that something strange happened to them when they were little, but they can't remember what it was. And then suddenly, Iris's oldest sister she disappears. She's kidnapped. They don't know what happened to her. And Iris and her sister go on a journey to try and figure out what happened. And basically a lot of gruesome things end up happening. They get these flashbacks of really dark times. There's a body that falls out of the attic. There's all sorts of stuff that starts happening. And this sounds super intriguing and super dark and intense. And this cover, though, guys, is so gorgeous, but also like kind of creepy, not gonna lie. It is painted, so that's really cool. But yeah, so this is the first book for April 6th. Okay, the next book that I'm going to talk about that comes out on April 6th is The Sky Blues by Robbie Couch. Now, this is a book about Sky, who is the only openly gay boy in his small town, and he decides to shake up the town by asking out his crush in, and I quote, the gayest way possible. Now, this ends up becoming basically a game for the entire town to try and figure out who his crush is as he goes to ask them to prom. And so it's all about being gay in a small town and then trying to figure out after all of this if he's going to actually get to go with the boy he likes, or if he's going to ruin it by it being this huge town thing. So I think this sounds absolutely adorable. I love this cover. He has a unicorn hoodie on, so yes, I want one. Thanks, good talk. But I am trying to read some contemporary books. I did just finish one, so I think I'm doing okay as far as that goes, but I am trying to read more contemporary books as well, so. The next book that's coming out on April 6th is Pride and Premeditation by Tirzah Price. This is the first book in a new series called the Jane Austen Murder Mystery series. So I think this cover is really fun and I really like it. It is reminiscent of the Pride and Prejudice cover. This is a spin-off of that, but I believe it takes place in a slightly updated society from the original story. And it does follow Lizzie Bennet, who is an aspiring solicitor. And she hears about a scandalous murder that takes place in the high society classes. And so she decides to go and try to investigate. And she ends up working with with Darcy through his corporation, and she tries to solve the murder mystery. So I think this sounds kind of fun, honestly. I'm all here for murder mysteries for some reason, but I think that it really does fit the Lizzie Bennet persona of being like, no, I can be a lawyer. I can do this. Yes, let me do this. And I am excited to see where this book goes, honestly. Okay, and the last book that I have for April 6th is Go the Distance by Jen Kalanita. Now, I am not sure which number this is in the Twisted Tales, but is the most recent one. I believe it's like number 12 or something like that. I honestly haven't been reading them. I've read a couple and they're pretty good, but this one is very intriguing because it follows Hercules, as you can tell by having Hades on the cover and the Disney atmosphere to it. But this, the twist for this story is, what if Meg had become a Greek god instead of saying no, and instead of Hercules becoming immortal, what if Meg had become a god instead? So I'm not sure. I'm a little intrigued by this concept. I really haven't thought about that because that was never addressed. That was never really a possibility. So I'm curious as to what she would become the goddess of. So yeah, so this will be interesting. This one also comes out on April 6th. I lied. There's one more that comes out on April 6th, and that is Blessed Monsters by Emily A. Duncan. This is the third book in the Wicked Saints series by Emily A. Duncan. I read the first one. I did enjoy it. This is the third book in the series. I think it's the finale. I'm not positive. I also don't know how many books this series is. But if you have started that series, this is the third one in that series. It is all about gods and battles and magic powers and overcoming the past. And yes, it was the first one I enjoyed, but it is based off of Russian folklore, I believe. So some of the names were a little over my head as an American who doesn't speak any Russian. But I did listen to the audiobook of the first one and I really enjoyed the audiobook. So I would highly recommend that. The next date that I'm going to focus on is April 13th, and the first book is The Light of the Morning Stars by Rena Rossner. Sorry, I do know how to say that. Rena Rossner. She is the author of The Sisters of the Winterwood. So if you're looking for something else that's already out by her, that is, I haven't read it, but I've only heard good things about it. But this is interesting. This is a fantasy retelling of a Jewish tale about King Solomon's sons. And so this is a retelling where in the town, his descendants, King Solomon's descendants, actually collect stars and they grant wishes and answer prayers and the such. And then one day, through some turn of events, there is an accusation of witchcraft on their small village. And so basically the village gets attacked. And I believe this is about the aftermath of that. So I'm intrigued. I love this cover. It is just beautiful. I just stepped closer to the camera, but it's resting on my shoulder. But this cover, guys, it's just beautiful. Like, look at this. It's stunning. I love it. So this is definitely one that I'm intrigued about, and I do want to see, maybe I'll pick it up at some point. So I am curious. The next book I want to talk about is The Mary Shelley Club by Goldie Moldavsky. Now this is, it's advertised as Karen McManus meets Scream. So basically, this follows a girl in high school. I don't remember her name and I just looked at it, but I have terrible memories, so that's probably why I don't remember. This follows a girl in high school who really just wants to fit in, and she ends up pulling a prank that gets her into a lot of trouble. But it also catches the attention of the Mary Shelley Club, which is a club of kids who are aiming to pull the biggest prank in school history in order to be remembered. And I love prank books. I love the idea of pranking as like a form of rebellion, and I'm here for it. Plus it's called the Mary Shelley Club. I believe they're trying to show like what's wrong with the people in charge at the school, the administration, but I don't remember. So don't quote me on that, but I am so intrigued to read this and I definitely want to check it out. So this is another one that comes out on April 13th. The next book that I'm going to talk about is another book that is the first in a new series, and that is The Prison Healer by Lynette Nani. This book follows 17-year-old Kiva, who has worked as a healer at one of the biggest prisons in this fantasy world that we find ourselves in. And one day, the ruler of the fantasy world, the queen, I believe, finds her way into the prison and has been captured, and she is being held there for a series of trials that will basically kill her. And that's the whole point of it. But then Kiva ends up getting a message from her family saying, "Don't let her die, we are coming." And so Kiva risks everything, mostly her life, and she volunteers to do these trials for the queen in order to save her life, even though these trials very well could kill her. And it's all about her going through these trials and figuring out whether or not it's worth it to do as her family says. So I think this sounds super fascinating, and I'm very intrigued by this concept. I don't know a lot more about the book itself, but it is also listed as for fans of Sarah J. Maas and Sabaa Tahir, so they're amazing fantasy authors, so I feel like this has to be as well. All right, the next date that I'm moving on to is April 20th, and the first book I'm going to talk about is The Forest of Stolen Girls by June Her. Now, this follows a girl named Juani who, when she was little, her and her younger sister were kidnapped, and neither of them remember what happened. Her father is a detective, and this follows them several years later when her father realizes that 13 girls have gone missing in this same area. And Juani ends up going back to her secretive hometown in order to try and figure out what happened to her and her sister, because she doesn't remember it and it is affecting her life now. And she goes on this adventure to try, not adventure, more of like this roller coaster ride of trying to figure out what happened to these 13 girls, since it's probably the same as what happened to her. So I think this sounds absolutely thrilling, and it sounds like it's going to be very intense as well. So deals with both memory loss and kidnapping. So trigger warnings, I think, for those already. All right, the next book is, again, the first book in a new series, and I am super excited by this one because it is These Feathered Flames by Alexandra Overy. And this is a queer retelling of The Firebird, which is a Russian folktale, which I am familiar with, but it follows two sisters, one of whom is being trained as the future queen of the realm, and the other who is training with her aunt to become what is known as the Firebird. Now, the Firebird ensures that the magic of the realm is safe. But before their training is done, the princess who is training to be the Firebird receives an immense amount of power inside of her, which basically tells her that the queen is dead, and so they need to crown a new ruler. And so as these two sisters end up taking over the kingdom at a younger age than anticipated, they're thrown not only into the court life, but they also need to figure out who murdered their mother, the queen. I think this sounds absolutely thrilling, super intense, and it is a series, so I'm curious to see where that goes. Not to mention this cover, guys. This cover is so pretty. I love it. And Firebird is always a story that I have loved, so I want to see how this spin-off happened. So this next book is one that I really don't know a lot about. One, I really like the cover, but two, it's advertised as A Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue meets Pirates of the Caribbean. It's In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens, and I don't know anything else about it, but I saw that and I want to read it. I want to know. Like I said, I am trying to read more contemporary, and this isn't contemporary, but this is a romance, so I do want to check this out. It's a pirate romance. It's a gay pirate romance. I want to read the thing. Please. That's all I have for that one. All right, the next book that I'm going to talk about is more of a serious one, and that is Dustborne by Erin Bowman. This is a dystopian story that follows a girl named Delta who has been born with a map to a utopia basically burned into her skin. So because of that, everyone is looking for her, and they don't care if she's dead or alive. They want the map to this utopia. She ends up going into this world of dust storms and sandstorms and quicksand and all of these dangerous aspects in order to go and try and find her family. But she realizes along the way that in the wastes, no one can be trusted, not even her best friends. So it's all about this journey that she goes on, and I love this cover. So I'm also going to briefly touch on Witches Steeped in Gold by Sion and Smart. I did talk about this one, I believe, last month because it was supposed to come out last month, but it ended up getting switched, and it is coming out in April, on April 20th. I don't remember a lot about this book. I do remember thinking that it sounds very intriguing. It is a story, I think, that was based off of a Nigerian tale, if I recall correctly. And the tagline is, "Their order divides them, their revenge will unite them." So I remember being very intrigued by this book, and I do believe that they are book of the months for some book boxes. I don't remember, but I believe that's what it was. So I'm sorry I'm not going into this one, but if you want to, you can check out the previous anticipated releases where I did go more into detail on this book. The next book I'm going to talk about is actually one that I've had on my radar for quite a while because I do have an art copy of it and I do plan on reading it very soon. And that is Maggie Finds Her Muse by D. Ernst. This is a contemporary novel. I told you I'm looking to get more into those. And this follows Maggie, who is an author who decides to go to Paris in order to try to find some sort of inspiration for the novel that she is currently working on. And while she's there, she meets up with another writer and ends up falling into a sort of romance with them. I'm going into this one a little bit more blind because I find that a lot of the contemporary or romance books I read, if I read the premise, I know exactly what's going to happen in the story, so I'm trying not to read it as much. But this one I know takes place in Paris, and it is an American writer, so I am very intrigued by this. And the last book that I'm going to talk about is actually coming out on April 27th, and that is Lycanthropy and Other Chronic Illnesses by Kristen O'Neill. I know that a lot of these and kind of books have been going around. This one sounds super intriguing to me. I love anything werewolf related, as you know. But this one follows Priya, who is diagnosed with severe Lyme disease her sophomore year of college and ends up having to move back home from Stanford in with her very overprotective and overbearing family. She ends up joining a support group on Discord. I also think that it's cool that Discord's in there because I've been using Discord a lot to talk to people. But she joins a support group on Discord that is kind of a support group for people with severe Lyme disease. And that's where she meets her friend Bridget, who lives in Pennsylvania, I believe it is. And one day, Bridget just goes completely offline, and so Priya does something completely out of character. She steals her family car, and she goes and checks on Bridget, only to find there is a wolf in Bridget's spot. And suddenly, she realizes that Bridget is probably now a werewolf. And this story basically talks about the two of them attempting to deal with their two illnesses, one being a werewolf and the other one having chronic Lyme disease. And so I think this sounds absolutely adorable, but also very important, I suppose. So I am very interested to see where this story goes, and I really like the cover too. I mean, it's adorable, let's be honest here. And that's what I got for you guys here today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, now is the perfect time to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe. We post new videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And if you want to be reminded when we post these videos, hit the little bell icon down below. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep reading. Bye! My Wednesday Addams look is back.